here. I think this break d5 is particularly painful when it was arranged coming up. So the d5 break, once e5 is reinforced, looks painful visually and is a cause of tactical issues now soon. Black's position is starting to creak, I think, here. If you look at the rooks, they're pretty fantastic compared to the rook counterparts. What does black do to hold on here? It's difficult, really. It's a very difficult position for humans to play. If you look at the rooks, they're pretty fantastic compared to the rook counterparts. So black looks terrible here, the smoking gun rights. In this line, we open the e file. Yeah, black does look terrible. So he took on f6. We have the full blasting files now, which is just winning material. Black decided, what can this rook do to help black anyway? It's not doing much, is it? It's hopeless. So it's another crush, really. I mean, I don't know if we can say this was a worse crush than the other ones we've seen, but these games seem absolutely amazing, as each one demonstrates some aspect of dynamic play. Where the opponent, again, really didn't seem to have any counterplay. So we can say Kasparov is a bit like Karpov, that his opponents didn't have a chance during the games. They were absolutely crushed, not just beaten, they were totally crushed into a pulp. So let's have a look at another game, if you'd like. Now this is quite interesting. A local grandmaster to me, a UK grandmaster, Jonathan Spillman, when he was still kicking around very actively in the Olympiads, 1980 Olympiads. So Jonathan Spillman's rating was I think a 2500 grandmaster. So could Jonathan Spillman as black put up much more resistance? So we'll see. Again, Kasparov elects to play d4. So Spillman goes in, like the majority of Kasparov's opponents, goes for the Nimzo-Indian system. And again, Kasparov refuses the main line Nimzo-Indian, plays knight f3, Queen's Indian territory. Okay, so we see b6. Now a slight deviation from previous Queen's Indian games after g3. Black tries bishop a6, it's a popular move. After knight bd2, bishop b4. So renewing the threat, quite annoyingly, you could argue, bishop c4. Now, white plays actually queen b3 here, which in some ways looks a bit artificial. Aren't you blocking in the pawn? But what concretely can black do here? Is he going to waste time protecting this or moving it back? What is he going to do? He protects it, the bishop. And Kasparov plays now d5. Okay. Black voluntarily gives up the dark square bishop. Bishop takes d2, eyeing of course a5. If knight a5, just snap it off. So knight e7 is played. Looks a bit provocative. Okay. In this position, Kasparov simply plays. He doesn't bother taking on e6 or anything. He can't really easily protect that pawn. The pawn's a goner. He just plays bishop c3. So what on earth is this about? Isn't black dropping d5? No, because now bishop c3 with that immediate threat. If takes, black would suffer, I think, a lot. Bishop takes f6. C takes is very unpleasant. So that's sufficient to indirectly protect the pawn. So knight f5 by Spillman. Knight d2 is played now. Knight d2. So you might wonder why knight d2. If knight d2, very interesting move. Maybe this is all theory. Knight d6. It does support c4 in advance of any knight d6, which is played. But actually no, the important reason for knight d2 is revealed now. After knight d2, as well as in advance of knight d6, the important reason seems to be revealed with Kasparov's next move now, to create a powerful centre. He plays f3. He's going to have a magnificent centre here if he gets in e4. But is it vulnerable in some way? Or is black not in a position to try and exploit this centre? Spielman castles, and after e4, it looks pretty good. And he's got the bishop pair. It looks like an opening success. He's also threatening e5, winning a piece. Okay. And strangely, maybe Spielman's thinking, well, the king's in the centre here. But strangely, why doesn't Spielman, you might ask, in this position, do something about this e5 imminent threat? He doesn't. He just plays e takes d5, offering up e5. But here, it's not a big deal. The king is on e1, so maybe just rook e8. Kasparov plays c takes d5, again renewing the threat now of e5. And also the bishop is now on pre. Bishop takes f1, rook takes f1. Now surely e5 is a threat here, surely. But Spielman plays a5 now. Isn't he just asking for this e5 in the centre? It's now that Kasparov plays e5. So what's the idea here? Kicking the queen to c2, pinning the pawn. Okay. But Kasparov simply unpins, and isn't he just winning a piece? King f2 looks as though, isn't he just won a piece? Spielman takes on d5. The little trick is revealed though. By taking on d5, e3 is vulnerable. So actually in the game, e takes is not played. If e takes, let's see. Is queen e3 a threat, or knight e3? Do any of you see anything for black here? Is this really dangerous for white? For example, check, check. What do you play here? Whoops. So that's kind of serious stuff, isn't it? So let's go back to this knight d5. And you see, if rook f2, then again we'd have knight e3 check. King moves, you can play queen takes f2 if you wanted. So anyway, Kasparov avoids all this. He doesn't allow this queen e3, so that's a neat trick. He plays actually queen d3. Okay, so it's become another pawn sacrifice. Queen d3 stops any knight b5, still stopping knight f5. Okay, and he's also of course guarding e3, so surely the knight has to move, but actually if the knight moves, now queen takes d5. So has Kasparov sneakily won a piece? But hold on a sec, Hold on, what about knight takes c3? Unfortunately, even knight takes c3 doesn't look good. Because of e takes, where is this knight going? Oh, blimey, this knight's stranded. What do we do about this knight, guys? This knight's stranded. So it seems Kasparov has outwitted Spielman tactically with queen d3. Isn't this just clearly just winning a piece? Two knights are attacked. Oh dear. So Spielman tries queen e6 here. Maybe he's losing a piece anyway, whatever he does now. So he goes a piece down, a bit sad. And the compensation doesn't look great here. I don't know about you guys, but doesn't it look remarkably as though, unfortunately, Spielman, before move 20, you know, our representative from the UK, unfortunately, he seems to be a piece down at move 20. Before move 20! Is this right? Oh dear, oh dear. Oh, queen d4 to add insult to injury. Just threatened mate as well as being a piece up. It's parried. And attacking h2. Kasparov spots that actually, funny enough. He plays h4. f5. Spielman's fighting on a little bit. So f4 might be dangerous. It's shut down. f4. Rook f6. It looks a bit desperate, but the game continues. Rook a e1. Okay, so b5. These pawns are ideal for a knight coming to g5, aren't they? Knight f3, as though the knight's going to come to g5 or e5 even. Okay, the pawn can be snatched. So how many pawns have we got here? 4, 5, 6, 7. 2 pawns for a piece. Not too much. Queen c5. Rook moves. That rook is defended actually for a moment. So rook e2, building up slowly. Rook e6. Kasparov takes and plays rook e1, getting control back of the e file. Now bishop d4. Okay, so the bishop's kind of nice there on d4. He's just a piece up. Kasparov locks down the queen side and now starts the final attack with h5, offering a pawn. He gains access to the d6 square with this pawn sack. Queen d6. Horrible threats. Black's forced into passivity. Queen f7. Knight attacks the queen. Queen comes back optimistically, as though there might be something here. But not really, Kasparov says. He just takes on d7, doesn't mind queen h2 check. The checks run out now. After check, Kasparov now plays king g2. The checks have run out. Or is there one final dangerous check Spielman uses here? He plays actually knight takes f4 check, interestingly. And Kasparov doesn't indulge these checks anymore. If g takes, it looks lost for black. Anyway, it looks hopeless. Whatever. But Kasparov just ignored it. He played king g1. He doesn't care about queen takes g5. You know, this is mating. So after king g1, you know, there's numerous threats. Black just resigned here. So another grandmaster just steamrolled, it seems, by Kasparov in this Olympiad. Let's have a look in overview and summary. So this was a queen's engine with a bishop a6. So the unusual looking queen b3 seemed to work out pretty well. So bishop c3 just in time. Knight d2, creating a powerful looking centre as top priority, not bothering with the standard fianchetto but knight d2 for f3 and e4. Now this constant threat of e5, the timing of e5 is interesting. So it looks as though, has white fallen into Spielmann's trap with his king still in the centre? A devious little trap, but no. It seems after knight takes d5, black is losing a piece after queen d3, whatever happens here. Because if knight takes c3, the knight's stranded after all this, after takes. Where is the knight going? Nowhere. It's all stranded. So basically, black losing a piece for not much compensation. And Kasparov can simply just exchange off some pieces and just go for the final attack now with h5 to infiltrate with the queen, with queen d6. So he's getting his queen on the 7th rank. Well, it'll attack g7 soon. So the queen's now on the 7th rank, attacking g7. And that's it. After king g1, just ignoring, no need to complicate the game anymore. So bit of a crush there again. All these games are pretty crushing actually, with white. Let's look at another one. I can't get enough of these Kasparov games. Shall we have a look now? Actually, we've run out of Kasparov with white in this Olympiad. Shall we have a look at Kasparov games with black? Anyone keen to carry on? Anyone fed up? Or should we carry on next week? I don't mind carrying on because I started late. I feel a responsibility to give you at least an hour's worth. So I don't mind carrying on with some black games. Shall I carry on, or what do you reckon? I'll be putting it on YouTube later anyway. If you can't stay for the whole thing, you'll see it on YouTube.com King's Crusher tomorrow probably. Okay, so let's. Okay, one more. Okay, so now Kasparov is black, right? You know, he was pretty crushing with white, I thought. Is kind of inspirational actually. Looking at players, you know, brilliant players and how they smash people, it makes me feel better about losing last night, to be honest, because it just shows that even if I was much better, that I could still be smashed. I don't know about how you guys feel, that if you did reach 2400, 2500, you can still be smashed. Chess is not like noughts and crosses. There's only these infinite like levels of skill. And it doesn't matter what level you're on, unless you're like you know, 2800, you're going to get smashed by people higher than you. So yeah. So okay, so Kasparov as black against the Argentinian team this time. So his Argentinian opponent is a bit of a relative bunny actually. He's only 2300, his opponent. Giordali. No, I can't pronounce it. Giardelli. Sergio Carlos Giardelli. Okay, 2300. So Kasparov's on a low board. He's only 25, about 2500 GM at this time. You know, his team's got higher rated players than him. So he's playing some relatively low rated opponents FIDE wise. It's very interesting actually. So we'll flip the board. Okay, so c4. What does Kasparov choose against c4, the dreaded English opening? Now, often I've observed Kasparov playing e5 and g6 and delaying this knight so it can, you know, come to e7 later. But actually, in this game, he chooses a very interesting first move. Yeah, he was first reserve. Actually, I've got his score. I can paste here from Wiki. Hold on, I'll just paste you his score statistically. So this was the Valletta. I'll just paste you the details of the Olympiad. It was the Valletta. Here it is. The Valletta Olympiad of 1980. He was the USSR second reserve. He scored 9.5 out of 12. So it was 8 wins, just 1 loss and 3 draws. So his team got gold and he got the bronze medal for his board. So can you believe someone got a higher score than him on his board? That's pretty amazing. Maybe the guy that beat him. I don't know. Okay, so c4. Okay, so Kasparov played c6 actually. c6. And now it looks as though he's gone into super solid mode. And actually, do you know what this opening is? This is quite amusing actually. This is a reverse of the opening that I've gone over recently of the 5-minute tournament Fischer won in 1970. Fischer as white playing Tau played a fianchetto, if you remember, with a c3 and d4 system. This is like a reverse of what Fischer played. So c6 with g6. It's an ultra solid setup. You're fianchettoing a bishop and you're getting some occupation of the centre. Sounds good. Why not mix them up? Okay, so bishop g7. Okay, knight f6. It looks as though black has a solid setup here. So it looks like Slav territory with a bit of a difference with the fianchetto. White took on d5 and now played d3. Okay, so black develops naturally now. This exchange on d5 did give this c6 as a natural developing for the knight. So the knight's quite aggressive here on c6. It's supporting, you know, maybe e5 and d4 with an aggressive pawn chain, more space, maybe control of d5 later if the pawn's on d4, clamping down black. And you can imagine if this knight is driven, you know, maybe later bishop e6, the queen side might be a bit weaker. So it looks as though black's in a good position to aim for a space advantage. In fact, after this queen b3 move, he does get a space advantage. He pushes on with d4. Knight b5, the knight's kicked back. Okay, the queen's of course on b7, but ideally we want to play something like this, but b5 sorts that out and stops a knight reroute. So bishop e6 might be on the cards. So bishop f4, bishop e6 is played with tempo. So I don't know, white's played this a bit sloppy it seems. Maybe he had a large chicken kebab before the game or something. I don't know. It looks as though white hasn't got much advantage in this game at the moment. But there aren't that many major targets of attack. But there's an uncomfortable pressure brewing, it would seem, in the position. With black's kind of space advantage. And this knight not looking particularly great on a3. Queen d2 and now bishop d5, sort of tying the knight down unless white wants to weaken the light squares around his king. Rook fc1. Okay. So now Kasparov wants to maybe use his e-pawn. He plays knight d7 as though e5 might be on the cards. In fact, after the next move, attacking d4, e5 is played. Bishop h6. Kasparov doesn't mind the exchange of his dark square bishop here in this particular position. He plays queen e7, inviting that exchange. So with the exchange of the dark square bishops, we have a sort of space advantage here, don't we? It looks uncomfortable for white. My personal biased opinion is black's better, but I wonder how you guys evaluate this. Do you think black's already doing very, very well? Do you think black's actually better here? He's done more than equalise, surely. What do you think? If I give you 10 seconds to evaluate this. Anyone? Well, anyway, I think black's doing fantastic. So let's go on in the game. So e3. So white's trying to bite at the white centre anyway. If there's anything at the black centre. So the hyper-modern tradition. So d takes, knight takes. Okay. Now Kasparov voluntarily gives up actually his light square bishop to be able to plunge in now with knight d4. So immediate menacing tactical threat has emerged now. Okay, so the bishop just tucks back on g2. And now we see knight c5. Okay, so where is this knight heading? It's putting pressure on d3. Maybe knight a4 or knight e6 is heading, or maybe just rook d8 to put pressure on d3. We're about to find out. So rook e1. For the moment, the knight isn't used for anything actually. We see h5. Interesting move, as though this is trying to loosen the white king, or there's a positional consideration. Also, it stops knight g4. Maybe that's the key point, because you know this might be a threat. So rook ac1, rook fd8. Okay, back to d3 now. d3 looks like a vulnerability to attack. It's defended in advance. Queen f6. What does queen f6 do? Queen f6. What is going on here with queen f6? Actually, it does support knight f3 check, winning the light square bishop. But is that the idea? After knight c2, in fact, this might be a trap now set by white, because look at this. Something sneaky is going on here. If knight check, you can imagine actually, takes, and then the sneaky d4 hitting the queen and the knight. I think Kasparov's alert. He hasn't had a major chicken kebab or anything before the game. He's alert to this. In fact, what he does here is play not knight d4, but he plays b4. Okay. Now you might ask, why can't the knight take that pawn? Isn't that a bit of a problem? Now in the game, actually, white did take on b4, and it's labelled like one of the major blunders. Preferable apparently was rook c4. Okay, but knight takes b4 was played. Okay. Now, what is going on here? Is it to do with knight f3? Is it to do with d3? Is it to do with this d file? Okay, a break in the center. e4. Now clearly, if d takes, this is very unattractive, because knight f3 check will be winning the queen. Or would it? Isn't there a rook takes f3? So what is going on here? Let's have a quick look. D takes e4. What would happen here? I think it's just at least winning the exchange, isn't it? Knight f3 check. Rook takes. You take. Black would be the exchange up. So anyway, white plays queen e3. And now a threatening move, a5. Where's the knight being kicked to? It can't go forward very easily here, so it goes backwards, knight c2. Sorry, knight b5 is mentioned by Benka. There's no knight b5, sorry. So now here, knight takes d3. Oh, knight b5 here is interesting, but I don't know. Rook c5, if knight b5. Actually, Kasparov chose knight takes d3. So he's attacking that rook. He's threatening knight takes c2 now. So white played rook takes c8. And after rook takes c8, again, we've got a lot of things being attacked here. White seems to be forcibly losing material now. So he's losing the exchange. What can he do? He's losing the exchange. So we have a simplification, the exchange down. Ouch. Oh dear, so that was the end of that. No need for a kingside attack, just win the exchange, end of game. The opponent resigned here, he's just lost the exchange. It's enough. It's a horrendous position. I think even bishop takes e4 loses more material actually. To rook c4. That would be unpleasant. So actually the opponent resigned here. Okay, weird. White was sort of smashed there, but let's have a quick look in overview. So he played the kind of what the opening Fischer played in the 5-minute game. This setup with the sort of c6 and d5 in the fianchetto. It looks very solid. He gains space in the centre. White's like stumbling around there. So White's trying to play maybe hypermodern to try and attack the centre now that Black's voluntarily occupying it. There's a slight issue with dark squares around the king, which is sorted out very shortly by Black playing h5 as a precaution, maybe against knight g4, and now he's ready to sort of focus his attention on the weak d3 pawn, and he does so with a key sort of break. He keeps the tension going with the knight f3s, but for the moment he's not interested in knight f3 immediately. He plays b4, which basically ends up forcibly winning material in the game continuation. After knight takes b4, Black forcibly wins, it seems, material with e4. It's rather brutal, this opening up of the centre actually. There's no bishop e4 of course, because it just takes, and then knight f3 winning the queen totally, or winning the exchange if it takes. So it's all pretty much designed to win the exchange in many of these variations at the very least. So queen e3, he's just forcibly winning material with the black pieces, which is quite an achievement in its own right. So knight takes d3, and it's horrendous. You know, c2 and e1 attacked at the same time. It doesn't look as though there's a defense. Rook c1, you just take on c3 first. Then oh sorry, the rook, just take there. There's no defense here, it seems. I think White's forcibly losing material. So he goes the exchange down and just promptly resigns here. Okay. Shall we have a look at another game? Or okay, and I've got another game here against another 2300. Okay. Okay, let's have a look at another game. So a 2300 now. So, but by the way, on Play Chess, please feel free to applaud me. I think that's the Play Chess.com equivalent of clicking the like on Facebook. So, you know, applause, you know, if you want, because I have gone over the hour now. Surely I deserve it. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. Applause me if you want. No, forget it. I'm just kidding around. Look, so e4 anyway. So Roth is 2300, and so Kasparov's outrating him by like 300 points nearly. He's 2595. So he plays actually the Sicilian Defense. Okay. Knight f3. He plays actually this variation of the Sicilian, e6. e6 first. So I think most of you believe Kasparov usually plays d6 here. Is that correct? You'd expect Kasparov to play d6 out of interest. Most of you would believe this. But in this game, actually, he played e6. Okay. Does anyone know any sort of move trickery going on here, in particular, by playing e6? I did a Sicilian video recently, and I don't know offhand, actually. Sorry, it's just another variation of Sicilian, isn't it? So white plays d4, okay, and after cd knight takes, we have knight c6. There is an invitation to go into Sveshnikov here with knight b5. So if d6, bishop f4, we get a kind of Sveshnikov. But no, knight b5 wasn't played. Or is it knight f6 there? So anyway, knight c3 was played. And now we see d6. Okay, so he's got a Scheveningen pawn structure without the a6, which you get in the kind of usual manner he play it. So no a6 here for Kasparov. Actually, I used to omit a6 in my early Sicilian games, and then I realised actually everyone was playing a6 first before the Scheveningen pawn centre. I was a bit keen to get the Scheveningen pawn centre. But bishop e3, knight f6. Now we see bishop c4. I think this might be Fischer-Sozin territory variation, bishop c4. This bishop sometimes is very dangerous on the diagonal. So a6, I think it's Vladimir, queen e2, queen e2. Vladimirovic attack? Looks like it. Something like that. So queen c7. No threat at the moment. The queen's protecting c4. But bishop b3 is played anyway. Knight a5. Neglecting for a moment the development of the king's side. Does he really want to grab Kasparov's light square bishop quite quickly? Sorry, Kasparov is playing black here. Does Kasparov want to grab his opponent? He's neglecting his development. Kasparov is black. Sorry, just to make that clear. His opponent, Peter Roth, from AUT. Is AUT Austria? AUT is the country code. Does anyone know that country code? So G4 is played here. And Kasparov reacts to G4 quite calmly by playing B5. So he's not developing his pieces yet. So G5, knight D7. Okay. So Austrian opponent, AU2 is Austria. So Peter Roth from Austria, 2300, seems to have a promising aggressive attacking position here. He plays f4. So why does Kasparov like playing these Sicilian positions as black? Well, he gets to play an attacking move anyway, b4, kicking a knight. Always nice to kick knights around. Knight a4. And you can attack the centre now, bishop b7. It looks quite pleasant actually, in its own ways. But white plays quite dangerously, it seems. He's trying to smash Kasparov off the board with his next move. Forget about e4. Just plunge in, open the scope of this diagonal to tear along the diagonal. He plays f5. Kasparov is not keen to take, of course, now because of all this pressure on e6. He doesn't mind about playing e5 here. Okay, so knight f3. And now the light square bishop is snatched. And now snatching a pawn in the centre, bishop takes e4. Why not here? This pawn doesn't seem that bad to take. He's going to play maybe d5 later, or put pressure on the diagonal. Looks fairly pleasant. In fact, after castles, he puts pressure on the diagonal, queen b7. We see knight d2 now. So is white having a dangerous initiative here, or is it all gone? Bishop c6. Rook f2. Now Kasparov offers exchange of queens, queen b5. And oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. After queen b5, it's difficult to refuse this exchange of queens, isn't it? Because if we play a move like queen g4, isn't there queen d5 here? Or is that my imagination? It looks as though this is pretty dangerous on this diagonal. Maybe this explains why white took the queens off here. He plays queen takes b5. Oh dear. So he's lost his centre pawn, and the queens are now coming off. Not only that, these double pawns, okay, they might look bad, but what about this blasting a file here? So rook c1. Black seems to have a lot of the dynamism in the position. But for the moment, the rook goes off the a file to defend the bishop. Rook c8. What is happening to this knight? It has to exchange off knight b6 to save itself. Takes now king d7. Okay. Oh, sorry. Oh, there's a point to that. There might have been something against queen d5 earlier. Okay, before going any further here, so we're at move 23. Just make a note, we're at move 23. Because this doesn't look pleasant, this continuation. This is someone's... I Am Chess Explained, rather, not someone. Someone very special. I Am Chess Explained has mentioned, hang on, queen g4, queen d5, knight f3. Could white have just carried on with the queens on? Was this plausible as an improvement? Was there a better move for white, black in this position? It looks queen d5. It looks logical, doesn't it? So knight f3. Maybe that's better than the game, isn't it? Something to analyse maybe later. Okay, it looks better than the game. I mean, taking off the queens, just if white had played a pawn sacrifice earlier, it doesn't seem to be getting a major attack in this position. He seems to be just facing a terrible endgame with these pawns being very mobile in this position at move 24. He plays f6 anyway. Now bishop d5 offering exchange of rooks. The king can participate now, which it does. Bishop a5 trying to win that b4 pawn. But now Kasparov can start a counter-attack, believe it or not, on this g file, starting with g takes. So check. He's got his rooking with tempo, beautiful. And he can protect his b4 pawn with rook g4, protecting b4. So where are the problems to face now for black? Black seems to have a very comfortable position. Check. Bishop e6. So this pawn's ready to run. There's also checks on the cards. Check. d5. Takes off the knight. King e6. f6 looks vulnerable now. Pawns still seem mobile. This is now protecting b4 as well. So the rook's free to do something else, you know, maybe come to the second rank. h6 protecting that h7 pawn. Doesn't want to give white a run or anything. a4 trying to get a pass pawn. It looks pretty desperate. He's losing f6. It looks as though basically this looks a very promising endgame for black to easily win. He's winning another pawn or trading for e5 rather. He's got enough pawns though. He's got 2 extra pawns here. He's got a rook on the 7th, so the king's now restricted. Beautiful rook on the 7th, if you can get it. More active king. King comes in again, and here white resigned. Oh dear. So as black, okay, this looked as though white was overly provoked, created loads of weaknesses, and then the exchange of queens just ended up in a totally lost endgame. Let's have a look at an overview and summary of this. So provocation, using the Sicilian as a sort of fighting weapon. The instructive thing, I think, is like delaying actually masterfully the rook and bishop. Not normal bog standard development in this game. Instead, you know, aiming at white's Sozin bishop here. So white's creating quite a few weaknesses in the position here with all these pawn moves. The black's not committed yet to castling kingside, and instead, you know, Kasparov's just naturally attacking the centre and just, you know, taking this centre pawn. And this idea of just queen b7 looks quite powerful. This queen b5 idea coming up. White maybe was worried about this, but maybe this is the best continuation to, I don't know, queen g4, or, you know, but the exchange of queens looks miserable, and this is what happened. So a miserable endgame. It seems Kasparov parried the threats and started on the g file now, and f6 started to look weak as a pawn. Here f6 looks weak, so a thoroughly miserable endgame position. The exchange of a4 for e5, by getting the rook on the 7th, king marches in. Wow. So that was at least the game lasted longer though than some of the others where Kasparov had white. Okay, it was a longer game anyway, more resistance you could argue, but it did seem to be fairly miserable after the queens came off in this one. Okay, shall we have a look at one more with black? In fact, it's the last game I have on my list of games to go through. I was actually going to split this on 2 sessions, but maybe if we cover this game now, we can look at another Olympiad another week. Okay, so this was against a very high rated opponent from the USA team, Leonid Shamkovich. So Shamkovich is sounds like a Russian immigrant. Is that, sorry, am I incorrect? Shamkovich, was he a Russian immigrant? He was playing for the USA team. Leonid Shamkovich. Oh dear, I think I've overdone it. Okay, this has to be the last game anyway. So c4 was played. So Kasparov a little bit higher rated, 25.95 versus a 25.15, so more evenly matched game in theory. Knight f6. Okay, knight c3. Kasparov plays c5. Symmetrical English is his weapon of choice in this game. So knight f3, e6, preparing as though d5. That looks like good idea. Get a fair show of the centre. If white ever takes, then I don't know, this bishop will be liberated. That will sort out the bishop anyway. So e3, knight c6. Both sides going for the centre now. Okay. So here actually a3, and this looks like, doesn't this look like one of the Rubinstein and Immortal game or something? The opening white's chosen. Both sides were symmetrical in that, and then Rubinstein had this crushing attack, one of the most magnificent combinations in the history of chess, but it looks a bit like that same opening. But no, we're going into an isolated queen's pawn situation, I think. Potentially, if black plays d takes, what will be saddled with an isolated queen's pawn. But Kasparov's not interested in that at the moment. So bishop e7, bishop g5. Castled, bishop d3. And actually now once the bishop's moved, he makes the bishop lose time and gives white the isolated queen's pawn. So we see black, interestingly, we have an example here of Kasparov playing the black side of an isolated queen's pawn situation, which many of us will know can be quite dangerous on this diagonal. You know, if white gets in, you know, crude moves, sometimes it's dangerous, you know, and there's pressure on these files. So it's interesting, I think, to see how Kasparov handles this sort of position. In this particular position, he plays knight d5, offering the exchange of dark square bishops, which is accepted actually. Bishop takes e7, and now knight ce7, maintaining a blockade on d5. Funny enough, white seems content to exchange off some pieces here. He plays knight takes d5, so leaving black with a seemingly nice blockade on d5, and now castles. So maybe he just wants a little bit of a nagging pressure edge after rook e1, and maybe knight e5 later if he's going to be adventurous. Okay, so what does black do to solve the queen's bishop? He just plays b6 actually. He doesn't try and play a6 and b5, which maybe some of us might think about. So b6, okay, he's just going to strong point d5 here. He's just going to put his pieces pointing at d5. So queen a4. And now interestingly, in this position, not bishop b7 here, but knight f4. Knight f4. Knight f4. So what's this about? And isn't he inviting positively like queen c6, attacking the rook? So why has knight f4 being played? Anyway, white uses that opportunity to attack the rook to get the queen now to e4. Okay, queen f6, bishop d3, threatening mate. But the bishop can be taken off, and it is. Bishop b7. So we have a bishop versus knight scenario with the isolated queen pawn still looking a bit miserable. Okay, so knight e5. This is going to be a grind game, isn't it? The scene is set for a 55 move grind. So it seems actually Kasparov in this game so far, he wasn't faced with any kingside attack to speak of. The interesting moment was inviting queen c6 so far. So what does he do now? Does he just simply build on d4 pressure? Chess Explained writes, maybe because of bishop a6 he didn't play the routine bishop b7 because of bishop a6. Sorry, if we just rewind back before we carry on from there. Yeah, I was thinking that actually. I didn't say it explicitly, but bishop a6 might be the point of queen a4 if there's any point. Yeah. So this knight f4, I mean, oh, I see. So it means that any bishop b7, bishop a6 can be answered with bishop f3 because the knight's not in the way. That's the point, isn't it, of knight f4? So the bishop's directly attacking f3 to avoid bishop a6s. That's very good, isn't it? So he takes seemingly a slight risk of inviting queen c6. So he's safely navigated away from a light square bishop exchange. That's pretty ingenious actually in its own right, isn't it? Positionally. Okay, so now he can freely build up pressure on the isolated queen's pawn, and also of course threaten mate here. Queen g3. Okay, he's comfortable enough with his knowledge of endgames, and he doesn't need the queens on. He takes the queens off. There's an infiltration point, c2, marked here. Rook c8, rook d2. The knight's kicked. Rook c4, building pressure on d4, immediately threatening bishop takes f3 and to take on d4. This looks better for black already. It looks as though black is Capablanca. He's turned into Capablanca for this game. Would anyone disagree? I don't know, if I give you 10 seconds to evaluate, do you think black's much better or just slightly better? Or do you think it's equal? I think white's in trouble myself. And he's a 25-15. He's been Capablanca'd, hasn't he, with the white pieces? Would you say? White's standing passively here without much counterplay. So anyway, when you have a miserable isolated queen's pawn, sometimes the pieces have to be passive to defend it, like here. So he defends it passively. Okay, how does black proceed here to increase the advantage? Actually, interestingly, maybe he considers g4 as a nuisance. He locks that down with h5. He's marking out white's pawns now to make them like fixed. Knight e1, bishop e4, f3, and now bishop f5. So look at that. So g4 is stopped. That's foresight for you. There's no g4 if that was useful, but black's rerouting of this bishop marks out c2 very clearly. Okay, so king f2, rook d5, as though actually on the cards might be rook b5 now, or rook b3, or maybe a5, a4, variety of plans. King e3, actually g5 is chosen here. So potentially maybe there's an outside pass pawn on the cards. Rook a1, and now rook b5, putting pressure now on the queen side. So white's sitting here passively, being tortured now positionally. So b4, and now rook d5. It's done its job of committing more pawns, and now there's a5 maybe to try and weaken b4. So we see Capablanca-like technique here, or do we? Check, king e2. So a3 is being clung onto. Bishop b1, try and dislodge that rook. Oh dear. Okay, attack the bishop. Bishop goes back. Is he really going to have to repeat his move to defend the pawn? No, he plays knight c2 actually. Oh, because maybe he's factored in, look, if takes. Well, let's have a look. If takes. There's a bit of counterplay anyway. Check. There's a bit of counterplay maybe. Okay, but Kasparov, he doesn't take on c2. He tortures white. He just plays rook d7. What is rook d7 about? The rook wants to help with the c2 pressure, I guess. So after rook a2, going back, rook c4, renewing the threat now of bishop c2 and taking on d4. This is torture. b5. But doesn't this give white the glimmer of maybe an idea? I don't know. d4 is such a miserable pawn to look after here. King g7, king e3. The rook returns back. We're witnessing here torture, really, for the moment. So this pawn needs to be protected now. So it's protected with rook b2. But now it's attacked again now with this sneaky bishop. Bishop e8. And there's no a4, of course. So is this the start of losing a pawn by force, finally? It looks as though this chipping away is having some effect now. What does white do? White's going a pawn down, isn't he? He plays king f2, as though there's a knight e3 threat, but this rook takes b5 is still, it's possible here in time. Winning a pawn. Okay, so he's a pawn up now. He's really great going for a win here. He's pretty serious about it. He's a pawn up. So d5, trying to get rid of some of the pawns. So knight takes d5. Okay, stage 2. So we're at move 44. Now stage 2 is only another 10 moves actually, stage 2 from this position. He's gone for pawn up. He's got this 2-to-1 pawn majority. So he's want to start moving those pawns soon. Centralizes the bishop first. Starts picking on the a3 pawn. And now takes this tactical opportunity to kind of get rid of the knight, maybe, or at least pin it for a moment. Rook a4. Rook c3. And now he takes that knight, leaving a simplified rook and pawn ending. With an isolated pawn, double pawns, this looks pretty wretched. You can imagine, you know, a king coming up here, maybe. So king f7. Okay, rook d3. Looks fairly passive. b5, miserable. King f3, king e6. The king's coming to that beautiful blockade square, e5. Torture. a6. a6. Yeah, because he wanted to be able to play here without check, maybe winning b5. Rook c3. Now Kasparov simply plays rook c4. He doesn't mind the exchange of rooks here, because I think c3 is going to be leaving a winning king and pawn ending. If we have a look at this, takes. I think black can afford just to give up that pawn and leave white in zugzwang. I think this looks like a winning king and pawn ending anyway. It was avoided. White played rook d3, but also with this move it seems white resigned actually here. White resigned here. I think black has a simple plan of now playing a5 and b4 and just going into that king and pawn ending by force if needed, because these pawns are not looking good. It looks like it's easy to zugzwang white with these pawns not being very mobile. So anyway, white resigned here. Thoroughly miserable game that. So white didn't seem to have any attack on. You usually expect some sort of initiative, some sort of dangers for black, but the way Kasparov navigated that was pretty amazing. It seemed to be not too many worries for black. So let's have a look in overview and summary. So symmetrical position to start off with, symmetrical pawn structure. White was saddled soon with the isolated queen's pawn. Exchanges. So queen a4 looks like a great idea for this bishop a6, and it was answered in a very dynamic fashion with knight f4. So that looks like genius to be against bishop b7, bishop a6, to be able to play bishop f3 in one go. So queen c6, inviting queen c6 looks unusual, but it worked out really well. So if white just gets this out of the opening, it doesn't seem to be a major success. And he was just ground down, basically. Ground down from here without too much counterplay. The pawns are encouraged to be like weakened after this b4. And there comes a point after this b5 where this pawn is going to be lost soon because of this bishop movement coming up. So he wins a pawn, Stage 2 doesn't last too long. Fractures white's pawn structure even more. Protects b5 at the moment to stop any rook d5 check. White had enough anyway. Move 55. Okay, I think that's the end of my game list for this week. So that was Kasparov in the 1980 Olympiad. I'll be uploading this to YouTube. Thanks everyone for coming. Okay, thanks very much, and maybe see you next week. Okay, take care.